Welcome to JP Boxing. Today I'm here to discuss one of the best and most talked about fighters in the sport of boxing right now, Terence "Bud" Crawford, and what's next for the pound for pound contender and pound for pound king in a lot of people's eyes still. And just to start off the video, I want to say how great it is that Terence Crawford, at the age of 36, almost 37, is now finally one of the most talked about fighters in the sport, because for so long he was considered by us hardcore fans as one of the best fighters in the sport, but he hadn't been given them opportunities. He hadn't got their massive wins yet, like he's got over Errol Spence and that recently. And it's just good to see now that the casuals are talking about him all the time. And the reason he is so talked about is because he's also not just one of the best fighters, but one of the guys with the most options as to where he can go and who he can fight next right now. You're talking about looking at fights in like 3-4 different weight divisions for him. You don't get that with a lot of fighters. It's only with the likes of we had with Floyd and with Pacquiao and with Canelo when he was going up and down through the weights. It only happens with the great fighters. So yeah, it's got a bit. Obviously, he fought quite recently anyway. He won a world title in his 4th weight division against Israel Madrimov. Jumped straight up to light middleweight. Took on the best there. Got the win. It was competitive, but a clear win from Bud. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about that, you could check out my post-fight report for Crawford versus Madrimov over on my channel. But yeah, what I'm here to discuss today, now moving on from that, is what is next for Terence Crawford. I'm going to go through, I've got 6 options here that are all likely or all possible, and I'll put them in order of how I would like to see them, and also I think how the fans would like to see them too. So the one we want to see most, obviously, I'll talk about first, but even option 2, 3, 4 and 5 are all good options, and option 6 isn't a fight, it's something else. We'll talk about that at the end. You can maybe work out what that is. But yeah, let's go with the main option. The first option that Bud has got, the one he really wants, the one most, I'd say 99% of the fans, even though someone complain about it if it got made because of the weight difference and stuff, it's still the one that everyone would want to see. The one that's going to put bums on seats in a massive arena. The one that the whole boxing world is talking about and would be talking about massively if it happened. Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez. Man, listen, Bud would go into that as a huge underdog, and it's scary for me as a massive Bud fan. I've always been a massive Bud fan. It's weird for me to say he would be a massive underdog in any fight, but I wouldn't completely write him off in it, of course, but you'd have to make Canelo the huge favourite. But it's the one for Bud that it's a history-making fight. It's one of them fights that will be talked about so much when it's happening, so much after it happens. If Bud wins it, it will be one of the biggest wins in boxing history. He's already an all-time great, in my opinion, but he'll be right up there in your top 10, top 20 all-time greats if he won this fight. And was probably really looking at the options, the only one that adds something massive to his legacy now. Other than that, his legacy's already set, in my opinion. 4-weight world champion, beat all of his rivals around his weights, 2-weight undisputed, one of the only men to ever do that in the 4-belt era. Yeah, man, what else can you add? Canelo Alvarez is the thing you add. I'm not going to break it down and give a prediction and that for it today. I just think that is the best option. It's the one that makes him the most money. It's the one that makes history. It's the one that adds most to his legacy. And it's the one that fans all around the world, including casuals, will be talking about. Like one of them fights where you go to the hairdressers, or you go to the gym, or you're walking down and you see your mate and he's like, who do you think's going to win this fight on Saturday? Like, I can't wait. Can Bud do it? It's one of them ones that just gets everyone so intrigued and talking. So for me, that's clear option number 1 for Bud. He wants it. It looks like the promoters want to make it. Sorry, my thing's gone to a screensaver here. Let me just get rid of that. We're trying to work out how you turn that off. Oh, now it's come up with an advert. We'll skip that in a minute anyway, but I'll carry on.
It's called
Turn the speaker off. Not even live TV and shit's still happening, but I'm not going to cut it out. We carry on flowing. Anyway, as I was saying, it's not Bud that doesn't want that fight. It's not the promoters that don't want that fight. It's not even Canelo that don't want that fight. It just seems for some reason the negotiations, or they aren't entering negotiations. They're all saying they're interested. Canelo's just said it can still happen. Crawford wants it. The promoters want to make it. why not jump into negotiations and start actually trying to make it then? I think it's now because obviously the tension between Canelo and Turki Al-Sheikh is probably the thing that's stopping that fight happening. Canelo doesn't want to enter talks, which is understandable whilst he's still in, obviously got a fight coming up with Belanga. But we'll see after that, and we'll pray that this one can get made because it would be fucking absolutely massive. Now, anyway, option 2. This is one more for the hardcore fans because I don't think Jaron Ennis is a huge name with the casuals yet. Definitely not over here in the UK anyway. It might be slightly different in America, but he's not a superstar name like your Canelo Alvarez's and like your Bud Crawfords now or anything like that. But for me, Terence Crawford versus Jaron Ennis is one of the most beautiful fights that could be made in the boxing world right now. Crawford's my favourite fighter. If you're a regular on JP Boxing, you'll know that. I rate him so fucking highly, of course. That's why he's my favourite fighter. But Jaron Ennis, he's the guy coming through, man. If Bud is the king around those weights, Jaron Ennis is the fucking prince that's trying to take over, the one that's going to come through and try and slay the king. And I just think it's such an intriguing matchup in terms of story. As I said, the old guard, the new guard that wants to take over. But just the way their styles would match up in the ring, I think Jaron Ennis is one of the only fighters that is smart enough to maybe outbox Bud, maybe that cause Bud serious problems in there, not just because of his strength and power like Canelo would. I think Bud's a much better boxer than Canelo, but it'd be the size, the strength, Crawford carrying the extra weight in that fight. Jaron Ennis, boxing mind, boxing ability, he's not far off Crawford in my opinion, and he's only getting better. So I think this would be a super intriguing fight to watch right now, and one of the best fights that could be made out there. The likeliness of this happening though, it just seems like Bud ain't interested, man. Maybe it's a risk versus reward thing. Maybe he thinks Jaron Ennis don't add anything to his legacy. I think it would. You've swept up all the, let's say, the era that's just leaving welterweight now. There's one guy left there that's coming through the new era. It could be a type of win like Floyd Mayweather got over Saul Canelo Alvarez, and that win just gets better and better and better. All the stuff that Canelo's gone on to do since. Imagine Bud beats Jaron Ennis now, just as Ennis is coming into his prime, and then Ennis goes on to have like a Canelo career, like freeweight world champion, undisputed, sweeps up and goes down as one of the best of all time. That carries on adding shit to Bud's legacy for like the next 10 years, because Jaron Ennis is only in his mid-20s and still going to have a long career after this. So I think if the money's right, Bud should go for this type of fight, and I think it would make for a real interesting, tough one for him. Option number 3, another fucking tough fight, but in a completely different way. Sebastian Fundora. This would be a unification at 154 pounds. He's actually just been ordered by the WBO to fight Sebastian Fundora because he picked up the WBO interim title whilst fighting Madrimov for the WBA title. And Fundora is the WBO and WBC champ, and the WBO has just ordered him to defend against Terence Crawford. I know Fundora wants that fight. He said it already. I forgot to mention, guys, if you don't know who Sebastian Fundora is, and the reason this fight would be so difficult for Terence Crawford is because he's 6'6", Fundora. That is crazy. A light middleweight, 154 pounds, 11 stone, and he is 6'6". To put that into comparison, Bud is 5'8", so he would have a 9-inch height advantage over Bud. So I think it was a 6-inch reach advantage. Man, if you haven't seen Sebastian Fundora, go and Google him. He is a fucking freak of nature, and he's got hands. He's a very good fighter too. And although Bud's got the skill set over him massively, overcoming that at your 4th weight division, trying to close that gap on a guy with a height and reach advantage like that, I have to be honest, I would find it hard to see Bud winning that fight. But if he did, and like looking at that on the eye, and people like look at it's like a David versus Goliath type thing, I think it gets, as soon as people saw the face off for that fight, everyone will be like, oh my god, I have to watch this. Can Terence Crawford beat this giant? A bit like David Haye and Nikolai Valuev back in the day. And if Bud won it, casuals especially would be like, oh my fucking god, this guy is phenomenal. We want to see more of him. So yeah, it adds money. I don't know if it adds legacy, but it adds like eyes on your career and ratings for your career, in my opinion, that fight. And you pick up another 2 world titles at the weight in the meantime. So yeah, this fight's on the table for Bud. If he can't get Canelo, he doesn't want Ennis for some reason, then Sebastian Fundora is still a great option. Now, option number 4, an option that not many people are really talking about, and I don't know why, because it's an option that's wide open and realistic for him right now. There's all this talk about Bud being a 4-weight champ and now jumping up 2 weights to fight Canelo. What about the weight in the middle? What about middleweight? Go for a middleweight title, become a 5-weight world champion. That obviously is fucking legacy add-in, like all-time great ratings, rankings add-in there. The world champions at middleweight right now as well. You've got Yanni Beck, you got Carlos Adames, and then you got Erislandy Lara, who's fighting Danny Garcia soon. So the winner of that. All 3 of them are winnable options. The one that would be biggest money and name and that wise, the winner of Lara versus Garcia, that's the most winnable one for him. So that option there, if I was Bud and I got offered that fight for a 5th world title in a world title in a 5th weight division, sorry, I'd be straight on that. Because if it's Danny Garcia who wins that fight somehow, then I would make Bud a massive favourite over Danny Garcia at any weight. You're over Danny Garcia started down at light welter too. I think Bud's taller than him, taller than him and a longer reach than that too. So yeah, that one's a massive. He'd be a massive favourite going into that. Lara would be awkward, and I think he's like 40, 41 now, Lara, but he's a more natural middleweight, and I think he could cause Bud problems. But if Bud carried the extra weight well, an extra £6 from where he's at 154, I don't think that'd be too much of a reach for him, and I think I'd make him the favourite against Lara. Now, Yanni Beck is not as big name, and it's a higher risk. Yanni Beck is a very good fighter, but I'd still make Bud the favourite, and I'd make him the favourite against Carlos Adames too. So I think, yeah, all three of them fights, winnable fights, definitely for Bud to become a 5-weight world champion. It's an option that hasn't been talked about, but I'm sure Bud and his team will be looking at it. Likelihood, if they haven't mentioned it, you'd say it's less likely right now. That's just the way it is in boxing, but you never know. Now, them 4 options for me are all great. That's 4 great options. He's in a good place right now, Bud. Other than that, I think he's got 2 other options. The next one, the Spence rematch. Not that I want to see it, but I know a lot of fans still do. Up at 154, there's talk about Spence being weight drained. Maybe he was a little weight drained. Maybe the effects of his outside the ring life was having a little effect. But man, it's not gonna fucking stop him being that much. That's not what made him that far off Bud in that fight. What made him that far off is that Bud is a phenomenal fighter and Errol Spence is a very good fighter. And I'm a fan of Errol Spence. I really like him. Like I just said, he's a very good fighter. But Bud is the elite of the elite. Bud is all-time great, and that was the difference in that fight. But because there's still excuses by some of the Spence fans, do it at 154. Spence has had loads of time out the ring now, which would probably be another excuse to them. But you could say he's refreshed, he's recovered, he's not feeling the after effects of that beating from Bud anymore. He's no longer weight drained. There'd be no excuses. Bud can go and get another win, earn another load of big money in a big fight. And I think he feels like he owes that rematch to Spence too. He does have a lot of respect for Errol Spence. So I wouldn't be surprised if that one did happen, if none of the other options were available. But as I said, I don't think it adds much. He's already whooped Spence's ass. But it don't really matter what weight it was at when you're looking at the history books. Now, option number 6, I don't want it for him yet. But if he did, just go, I'm done, guys. I want to retire now. There's nothing left out there for me. The Canelo fight ain't happening, and that's all I want. I'd say fair play, man. I think you've still got a good few fights left at the top, despite being 36 or 37. I think Bud, he's one of them fighters who lives the life. He could go to 38, 39 easily. Floyd Mayweather style would still be at the top. But if you want to retire, you've already got an all-time great career, Hall of Fame career. You've got the fame now. You've got the superstar boxing status. Everyone knows you. Everyone rates you. Most fans love you. You'll go down as one of the realest to ever do it. One of the best dogs in the ring to ever do it. One of the best switch hitters to ever get in the boxing ring. You've got the resume now. If he calls it a day, what a fucking career it's been. But for me as a Bud fan, and it's because I know he's still so good. If I was a fan, like I'm a fan of Derek Chisora, and I've been asking him to call it a day for fucking ages because he's finished. Bud ain't finished yet, so as fans, we want to see him achieve as much as he can. Like, don't retire too early like Andre Ward, because Andre Ward had a brilliant career, but he could have had an all-time great career, man. I think that's what Bud has the potential to do if he just gets those few more fights. Imagine he beat Canelo, Jaron Ennis, Sebastian Fedora, and managed to get a middleweight title in like his next 5 or 6 fights. Fucking hell, mate. Or just them 4 fights. Sit around, wait, and just go for them 4. man, in my opinion, you're talking, especially if he got a win over Canelo, top 10 of all fucking time if he did that, man. And we know he's that good, he could do it. So yeah, let's just wait and see. Over to you guys now. In the comment section below, let me know what you want Terence Crawford to do next. Do you want to see him retire, or do you want to see him do one of the 5 other options I said? And could he beat Canelo? That is the question, because that is the one we want to see. If that fight ever does get made, I'll be dropping a prediction video for it straight away. But let's just wait and see and hope right now that Canelo makes up with Turkey and we get the fight we all want to see. Thank you for watching, people. And if you like my videos, please like and subscribe. Thank you.